This is your step-by-step guide on how you get a grade 9 in GCSE physics. And this is part of my new series where I outline clear, actionable steps that you can take to get grade 9s in all of your different GCSE subjects. So make sure you follow along if you want my best advice on how you can get all grade 9s. My name's Tilly, I got all grade 9s in my GCSEs and I just want to explain to you how I did it and just give you some advice on the things that you can do as well. This video is about everybody's favourite science, physics. Right, before you even think about revising physics, you need to be confident in maths. I feel like being good at maths will affect your physics grade the most. I feel like it goes like physics and then chemistry and then at the bottom it's biology. You can kind of do really well in biology if you're not very confident in maths, but obviously mathematical skills are very important for each of the GCSE sciences. Physics in particular because you have got so many equations that you have to do. Well, I guess a benefit of this is I found that physics was probably the least content dense and it was more about that conceptual understanding. Let's say you're thinking, right, I want to revise physics today, I want to work on my weak areas. What are your weak areas? Your weak areas are not just necessarily things that you've forgotten, they are things that you don't understand. This understanding becomes very critical when you're doing the calculations. As we all know, there are so many formulas to remember, but the hardest questions will sort of give you a question that is in a format that you're not really familiar with. Let's use Newton's second law. You can use F equals ma, but they might not give you M and A. You might have to infer it from something else, maybe match it with a different equation. What are the different elements of each equation? Why are you using it? What does it show? And etc, etc. Do you see what I mean? It's not about just remembering if you want to get the highest grade. What I would advise anyone do is use flashcards for physics. Particularly for the equations. Also on the flashcard, it's not just like what is Newton's second law, it is what is Newton's second law and then explaining each of the elements of it and not just defining them. Then what I would also advise you do is do like a big mind map that has each of the different equations on and how they can potentially link. But just knowing this content is not enough, you need to grind out practice papers. And the questions that involve maths, despite being conceptually difficult, you know if you've got the mark or not, and that's what I loved about physics. Okay, but maths aside, bear in mind that they're also testing your conceptual understanding of physics as a whole. In those longer answer questions, you need to be able to explain a process and why it is happening from start to end. And to get the top marks in those questions, to get 4 marks, you need to actually know it. In an exam, they will give you a scenario that you haven't seen before and you will have to apply your knowledge to it. So let's use efficiency for an example. They might give you an application that you have not seen before. Often they cover like a kettle, how you can improve efficiency, or like in a home or something, but they'll probably give you something that you haven't necessarily seen. And you've got to use your own brain on how you can realistically improve efficiency in that situation. If you don't understand the fundamentals of what efficiency is and how you can improve it, then you're not going to be able to answer that longer answer question. Bear in mind that this is done on purpose. Exam boards do this on purpose to analyse who has actually understood the content and can apply it to different settings. And that's how you get the top grades. They do it on purpose. The aim of GCSEs is not just to remember formulas and be able to routinely apply them. You need to thoroughly understand what you're doing. And everything on that specification. The specification is your best friend. Something that I found particularly helpful when I was doing my GCSEs, when I was learning the content, was when I didn't quite understand something, I would leave like no stone unturned. I needed to understand it then and there. If you don't understand something in the class and you've asked your teacher and they still haven't explained it in a way that you understand, go on YouTube and watch a video on it. YouTube is your best friend. You need to understand things, and often hearing it explained from another person will really help you because, I mean, teachers can only explain things in so many ways, and if you're not getting it, you're not getting it. But having somebody else explain it to you can be really, really beneficial, and I found it very beneficial. And then finally, something that you need to learn how to do before exam season is answer exam questions in very time-pressured conditions. The exams are short. You need to know how to use your time in the exams. A minute a mark rule of thumb, but do have some leniency. If you have a 1 mark question, it's 1 word or like a tick box. That does not take you a minute. You can sort of bank up your minutes to spend a bit longer on thinking about the 6 markers, or maybe even have 5 minutes at the end to make sure you've not made any silly mistakes. So step 1, identify weak areas. Step 2, go and work on them. Ask your teachers about them. Use YouTube to actually understand them. 3, if you think you've got it, go and do some practice exam questions. If you haven't got it, go back to the previous step. And just rinse and repeat this strategy, and there's absolutely no way you can do badly. When you're doing these practice exam questions, make sure, especially at this point in the year, you're doing them in time conditions, because there is no point in being able to get 100% in an exam and it taking 5 hours to do. Rule of thumb: when you're learning content, do the exam questions in on-time conditions. When you're revising it, do them in time conditions, because that is a very important skill to have in the exam. If you like this video and you want to see my top tips for the rest of your GCSEs, then comment what subject you want to see next and follow along for the next part of the series.